The history of Westeros, from the Dawn Age to Aegon's conquest. Long before the rise of kings and great houses, Westeros was inhabited by the Children of the Forest, a mysterious race of small humanoid beings who lived alongside giants and other magical creatures. Around 12,000 years before Aegon's conquest, the first men arrived from Essos. Crossing a land bridge known as the Arm of Dorne, they entered Westeros carrying bronze weapons and a desire to claim new lands. The Children of the Forest attempted to stop the invasion through powerful magic, shattering the land bridge and creating the island chain, later known as the Stepstones. Despite these efforts, the first men continued to advance across the continent. For centuries, war raged between the first men and the Children of the Forest. Eventually, both sides reached a stalemate and agreed to peace. This agreement became known as the Pact and was signed on the Isle of Faces. Under its terms, the first men would control the open lands while the children retained the forests. Over time, the first men adopted many of the customs and religious beliefs of the children, including the worship of the old gods. This period of peace became known as the Age during its Eros. Brandon the Builder founded House Stark and supposedly constructed Winterfell and the Wall. Lan the Clever became the legendary founder of House Blan. Gon the Gardener became the legendary founder of House Lannister. The Gardener established House Gardener in the Reach, while Durin Godsgrief founded the line of Storm Kings in the Stormlands. The Grey King ruled over the Iron Islands and became one of the most celebrated heroes of Ironborn legend. Then came the Long Night. A terrible winter descended upon Westeros. Darkness covered the land for a generation, and from the frozen north came the supernatural beings who brought death and raised the fallen to serve them. In the stood on the brink of extinction, in the struggle known as the Battle for the Dawn, the first this common any against Sind and the Children of the Forest united. Armed with dragonglass and aided by legendary heroes such as the Last Hero and, according to some traditions, Azor Ahai, they drove the others back into the far north. After the victory, Bran the Builder supposedly raised the Wall, an immense barrier of ice and ancient magic stretching across the continent. The Night's Watch was established to guard it and defend the realms of men against future threats from beyond the Wall. One of the darkest legends of this era concerns the Night's King. According to the tale, the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch fell in love with a mysterious pale woman. Declaring himself king and her his queen, he ruled from the Night Fort through sorcery and sacrifice until he was overthrown by Brandon Stark and Joramun, the king beyond the Wall. Thousands of years later, a new people arrived. The Andals crossed the narrow sea from Essos, bringing steel weapons and the faith of the Seven. They landed first in the Vale and gradually spread throughout most of Westeros. Kingdom after kingdom fell before them. The Children of the Forest retreated deeper into the wilderness, while many of the sacred weirwood trees were cut down. Only the north remained firmly in the hands of the descendants of the first men. Protected by Moat Cailin and its difficult terrain, House Stark successfully resisted repeated Andal invasions. While these events unfolded in Westeros, another civilization was rising across the sea. On the Valyrian Peninsula, shepherds discovered dragons living among the volcanic mountains known as the 14 Flames. Through magic, the Valyrians learned to tame these dragons and built the Valyrian Freehold, one of the greatest empires the world had ever known. Valyria expanded through conquest and dragonfire. The Freehold destroyed the ancient empire of Guise, subdued numerous neighboring peoples, and spread its influence across much of Essos. Its cities became wonders of magic and engineering, filled with towering structures, dragon lords who forged legendary Valyrian steel. Eventually, Valyria's expansion brought it into conflicts of her people across the steppes. Queen Nymeria led a devastating defeat. There she joined forces with Mors Martell, helping create the kingdom that would eventually become House Martell's domain. The Valyrians established an outpost on Dragonstone, a volcanic island off the coast of Westeros. The fortress they built became the westernmost possession of the Freehold. Roughly 100 years before Aegon's conquest, the Valyrian Peninsula was devastated by catastrophic volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. The Great Freehold collapsed almost overnight. Cities were destroyed, dragons perished, and the most powerful empire and the one noble family survived because they had left Valyria years earlier. The Targaryens had settled on Dragonstone after Daenerys Targaryen foresaw the doom in a prophetic dream. Because of that decision, they escaped the destruction that consumed their homeland. For the next century, the destruction remained on Dragonstone, while Westeros remained divided into rival kingdoms. The north belonged to House Stark. The Reach was ruled by House Gardener. The Stormlands belonged to House Durrandon. The Riverland, Westerlands, Vale, Iron Islands, and Dorne all maintained their own rulers and traditions. That changed when Aegon Targaryen decided to conquer Westeros with his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys, and Aegon launched an invasion unlike anything the continent had ever seen. An invasion in anything the continent had ever seen. Within 2 years, 6 of the 7 kingdoms had submitted to his rule. Only Dorne remained independent. The age of separate kingdoms came to an end, and the age of the Iron Throne began.